From child to adulthood, many carry the weight of their parents' expectations. The line between what you want for yourself and what your family wants of you can sometimes be hard to distinguish.
37-year-old Paetongtarn is the daughter of former Premier and political heavyweight Thaksin Shinawatra.
The daughter of Prime Minister and Party President Anwar Ibrahim defeated incumbent Rafizi Ramli for the Deputy President post by around 6,000 votes in a result seen as a major turning point for PKR.
Leaders of Mr. Duterte's party will meet next month to finalize candidates for next May's elections. His daughter, Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte, is said to be a top contender to succeed him.
You don't have to look far to find women in politics in Southeast Asia. Women in politics following in the footsteps of their fathers in particular. From Thailand to Malaysia to the Philippines and beyond, women have entered the political ring while walking in the midst of a paternal shadow. Is it nepotism, or is there something more about this part of the world that fosters female familial succession? I'm Teresa Tang. Joining me today in studio in Singapore are CNA correspondents Afifah Ariffin and Saksith Saiyasombut, and Lim Yun-suk is connecting with us from Seoul with the view from East Asia. Thank you so much to the three of you for joining me. I think it's great we're together because you've each covered a very interesting thread of one pretty intriguing story, I would say. You know, when I think of women in politics, I think of Aung San Suu Kyi in Myanmar, Benazir Bhutto in Pakistan, Sheikh Hasina in Bangladesh. And all of these women, their fathers were incredibly towering figures in politics. Afifah, I want to start with you. And I want to know, you're a woman, you're a daughter as well. What was it about this story that you thought, hey, it's worth digging into?
You're right. So for me, we know that this is not a new phenomenon. We've seen it, like you said, Aung San Suu Kyi, Benazir Bhutto. But what stood out for me was how often women leaders in Asia are being introduced into politics to their fathers. So the question that I had was, what does it take for these daughters to really stand as a leader in their own right? And like you said, I'm a daughter, I'm the eldest daughter, and I'm very much influenced by a lot of things my dad did, like my love for football, for example, golf, tennis. All these things were some things that were passed down from me, from my dad to me. So I also thought about then the role of a daughter in Asia in terms of my cultural influence, in terms of society, how society shapes me here. And this was something that I thought was interesting and how much. And so in Malaysia, when I watched this dynamic play out, in particular at the Parti Keadilan Rakyat or PKR elections in May, I really wanted to see how that dynamic would work between Nurul Izzah and Anwar Ibrahim, who is now the Prime Minister of Malaysia. So looking through her journey and then looking and zooming out, looking at other such incidents happening in other countries in Asia, I then spoke with my editor, spoke to Saksith, who's in Thailand. So and that's how this thing came about.
Wow. Okay, so Saksith, these women, what is it that drives them into politics? I'm wondering, is it genuine ambition? Is it nepotism? It could be. Or is it the fact that they come from wealthy families? Maybe these women don't need to find 9-to-5 jobs. And looking at Thailand, where you're based, there's, of course, Paetongtarn Shinawatra. And she was very quickly labeled as inexperienced and too young for a political career.
Indeed. I mean, for this story, it definitely allowed me to look at this topic from a different perspective. Also, personally as well, me growing up in the West, where there are different societal norms about female roles in society, as well in politics, because I'm a single child. My parents are Thai, but they have raised me pretty liberally and also with a freewheeling attitude. But then also I kind of think that would they have given me these same freedoms if I was a daughter instead of a son as well? And then looking at Thailand specifically, the interesting thing is that we had two female prime ministers and they both come from the same family. Yingluck Shinawatra over a decade ago, and until very recently, Paetongtarn Shinawatra, the daughter of Thaksin. And yeah, you're right. When she came into office, there were a lot of things in the whole Thai political story that there were firsts and things that were not expected. One of them was that I did not expect to A, cover yet another Shinawatra in office, and B, to cover a prime minister who's the same age as me. We're just a month apart. So, and that is also why people were saying, she seems to be very young and inexperienced. She jumped into this whole political world just a few years until she became prime minister. And a year later, or not even a year later, she's already out of office. But people were pointing out that her age and also her connections to her father were a liability. And her father, Thaksin, is such an omnipresent figure. A lot of people also say that he's a micromanager as well. So when he was still out and about, this shadow was looming very large on him. And when Paetongtarn became prime minister last year, and we're going to hear a clip from her when she was asked about how her father is going to influence her and whether or not she is going to be her own woman or not.
I hope I can ask him for advice anytime that I want, but not all the time, 24/7 like that, because it's not possible. So I am my own person, and I have my own things and my own goals that I have to be achieved in the future. But of course, all the comments from him value to me.
South Korea, it is a patriarchal society. North Korea, even more so. In early September, Kim Jong-un's daughter, Kim Joo-ae, she grabbed a lot of attention. We were watching because she was front and center during China's military parade. Yoon-suk, what do her appearances tell us about her position in North Korea's succession plan?
Well, I think North Korean watchers learned a lot when Kim Joo-ae was seen in Beijing right next to her father, and she was even standing directly behind him as they got off the train. And I think it is that single moment that told us something about her status in North Korea. And, in a place like North Korea, these are not spontaneous appearances. They're very carefully thought out moves by the North Korean regime. And so there was a message that Kim Jong was trying to tell the whole world. But interestingly, that was the only time she was seen. She didn't appear at the military parade itself. So we have no idea what she did in Beijing, whether she went shopping or, she did some other activities. But the fact that she was there and that Kim Jong-un, her father, brought her along is what attracted the attention. Now, right now, we really know very little about her. Even her name and exact age aren't being confirmed. But seeing Kim Jong-un bring her to Beijing made North Korea watchers here in Seoul and also outside of South Korea believe that she is finally being groomed as his successor. Now, let's listen to what Jenny Town from 38th North said, because she's someone who's been watching North Korea very carefully.
Yes, she's showing up. Yes, she's part of a political narrative that's being drawn. But there's too much that we don't know. We don't know what's happening with the other children. We don't know even exactly how many other children there are. There is at least one son. But, a lot of the conclusions being drawn are because we've never seen this kind of behavior before, especially for someone so young and especially for a girl. To me, I like to think of it more of like Ivanka Trump. For Kim Jong-un to bring his daughter with him, it gives him a sort of fatherly, a fatherly family man kind of persona, as well as, while he's building his leader persona.
I do also want to point out that there are other analysts here who believe that Kim Jong-un doesn't even have a son because there's been no sign of a son in his family at all. We haven't seen or heard anything about his son. And so if that is true, then, that truly makes Kim Joo-ae the most likely heir. But, North Korea being very unpredictable, nothing is ever certain. And so the succession plans could also always change.
Yeah, and there was a time when Kim Jong-un's sister was in the spotlight quite a bit, and she seems to have faded away somewhat. Afifah, you mentioned Nurul Izzah Anwar. She is, of course, the most famous political daughter in Malaysia. Of course, Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim is her father. 2028, that's the next general election. Do you think she has the potential to make her mark, or should we be watching for her father's political maneuverings?
I think both, because at this point in time, yes, she's already the deputy president of her party, PKR, which is also her father's party. But there's still a lot of tests to go before the big general election that's supposed to happen latest early 2028. She has the Sabah state election that's coming, and she's the election director for PKR and Pakatan Harapan for that. So she will be tested to see how she can galvanize her grassroots, how she can use the resources to win big there in the state election. But we have to also bear in mind that she's not a sitting member of parliament yet. She lost in the 2022 election. in Pematang Pao, which is in Penang, and that was a stronghold that her family has carried for decades. So there is an element of she being in the front line of party politics, but she's nowhere in government, nowhere close in her father's administration. There were attempts to sort of bring her in as a consultant role, but of course, that drew a lot of accusations of nepotism, and so she had to pull back. We don't see them very often. Iza is quite very behind the scenes and doing all the hard work on the ground. So it's very rare that we get a moment that we see her next to her father, Prime Minister Anwar.
Mereka kata politik bukan untuk wanita seperti saya. Katanya saya tak layak berada di sini. Mereka gelar nepotisme, tapi saya tak pernah guna kuasa.
And you hear the music because that was from her Instagram account. We're talking about daughters and their fathers, but Saksith, there are exceptions, right? Notably, let's talk about Taiwan. Tsai Ing-wen, she was the first female president in 2016. She's not from a political family. And you spoke to a former KMT politician, a lawmaker, who shed light on why some women do manage to rise on their own.
Yes, so I just spoke to a woman called Joanna Lei, even though politically she was opposite of Tsai Ing-wen, but they were contemporaries. They had the same educational career, high school, university, you name it, just 2 years apart. So, and she's a pretty fascinating lady because Joanna Lei, she didn't enter politics from the get-go either. She was before that in finance, in media, in tech investment, but then she was later asked to become a senator, and she did. And now she is a political commentator, a much sought after one as well. So we are pretty happy that she got her. And we were talking about what Taiwan is doing differently that would allow so many female politicians, not besides Tsai Ing-wen, before and after, to get into politics and to get into lawmaking as well. But one thing that also came during our conversation is the term Nepo baby, right? Something that's been thrown around a lot in recent years. But I was wondering whether or not this word Nepo baby is a Western defined term, and whether or not we need to make a distinction when we are talking about that in the Asian context. And this is exactly what Joanna Lei is actually talking about here.
When they look at Asia, they see our traditional heritage and traditional culture all across Asia. Typically, women are subservient in historical terms. So they look at Asian women as being subservient and being oppressed. However, Asia does have another tradition. That's a seniority tradition. When young women become a matriarch, they often lead an entire family or even entire enterprise, a business. So matriarchal respect is something that you don't find in the United States. So the seniority part can partly explain why it's so easy for Asian men to even accept strong Asian women in top positions, because a grandma is always respected wherever you are in Asia.
I want to play a clip now from Sara Duterte, Vice President of the Philippines, and she's also daughter of Rodrigo Duterte. And you can hear how she highlights how entering politics has really changed the dynamic of her relationship with her father. Take a listen.
We have a relationship now, a father-daughter relationship, since we cannot discuss anything legal anymore because it is understood inside that only the lawyers can discuss legal matters with the former president. So we only discuss about family, and this has been one of the longest meetings I have had with the former president. Growing up, he was always busy with work. He was always busy with the country. And now I have this every day with him, talking about life, talking about family.
Now, Sara Duterte has 2 brothers, Yun Suk. And before we go, I want to talk about that part of the story. Why are there so few males carrying out political legacies in this part of the world? Are they just not willing to be mentored? Do females have some sort of emotional baggage that predisposes them to answering these dynastic calls? What do you think?
Well, I think especially here in South and North Korea, I don't think it's really about women stepping in because the men are not interested, but I think it's really more about the timing and the circumstances, but also most importantly, the personal dynamics. Because, if you take South Korea, for example, the former President Park Geun-hye, she came into politics long after her father's assassination. And at the time when she entered politics, the Conservative Party needed somebody, needed someone the public could connect with. And, Park Geun-hye was someone who had served as the First Lady after her mother's assassination. And she had this powerful sort of like the daughter of the nation's image that she carried with her all those decades. And so she was seen as the symbol of the country's rapid development under her father's rule. And people here, South Koreans, connected with that. And that's why I also think, how, daughters are very close to their fathers, like Afifah said earlier. And I think that's the special bond that we have, the daughters with their fathers want to. And I think in a way, daughters feel responsible to carry on their father's legacy. At least that was the case here in South Korea. And it could be the case in North Korea too, where Kim Ji-woo is now being groomed to take over her father. But, we must remember that there's also, like you said earlier, the powerful sister, Kim Yo-jong. And apparently many analysts are saying that she is really the smartest of all her siblings, but she was not groomed and she wasn't selected as the successor after her father, Kim Jong-il, passed away because he had the son, Kim Jong-un.
Yeah, it's such a fascinating topic, and I haven't really thought about it, but if you look at nearly every country in this region, there is this father-daughter dynamic in politics. Afifah, Saksith, and Yoon-suk, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
And a reminder, you can watch the TV episode of CNA Correspondent every Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. Singapore, Hong Kong time. I'm Teresa Tang. The team behind this episode is Clara Ong, Tiffany Ang, Junaini Johari, Pei Ning Ho, Nat Feltovero, and Craig Dale. Bye for now.